What is poppin', people? You got Jay Bear here, bringing you all another video. This time we are going over my run in the DCL Draft Champions League, the premier draft team tournament hosted over on the Smogon website. A little bit about DCL this season. Like all big Smogon team tournaments, it is a best of even number series, this time being best of 8 for draft. And so the format's being played every week. There is 3 Scarlet and Violet standard slots, Paldea decks, 1 Sword and Shield Galar decks, 1 Ultra Sun Ultra Moon, 1 Oras, and 1 VGC Regulation F. And then rotating on a weekly basis, weeks 1 Oras, week 2 USUM, week 3 Sword and Shield, week 4 VGC, and then back in reverse order for weeks 5, 6, and 7. There is 8 teams. I believe teams must consist of, I want to say like at least 11 members. There's no hard maximum, but I believe 11 is the minimum. 3K minimum bid on a, I don't remember the exact budget. I want to say 110, maybe 120K. Captain buy-in was 15K. And we ended up going to the Nature's Madmen for the minimum 3K. I think intended we were going to try to support VGC, but also all of the other tiers, but mainly VGC. And yeah, so that's the context that you need. Obviously drafted as 3K, probably not starting right away, and that is the case. Week 1 we ride the bench to an unfortunate L. But week 2, it's already late in the series. We've already taken the L. So Odin decides to give me the opportunity to sub into this matchup. This is going up against Undead against the Chrome Cabal. Odin already built this team for me, but this is the matchup that we have with our Sun and Moon draft that contains Lando, T, Mew, Serp, Metagross, Tapu Fini, Electros, Mega Houndoom, and Muck. This was pretty solid team. It felt I didn't really get a chance to prep with it because Odin had already done all of the prep work, all of the groundwork for me. So I just had the responsibility of playing this game, piloting this team that he built. From what I recall, because I did end up mocking him, some of the bigger threats in the matchup was mainly Greninja, at least in our mocks, put in a lot of work because you have to do have that reliable check in Tapu Fini, but you have to worry about the gunk shot, and offensive Fini looks really good here. So we wanted to be able to make use of that, and so the team that Odin had built for us was this. We had a Lando T with Rock Polish set with a Rock Z for the Zapdos. We had a lead Mew, click Rocks turn 1, and then do a bunch of stuff. Hopefully we get U-turned on by a Uxie. The goal is to be slower than said Uxie and finish it off with Leash Life trading or doing damage to the rest of the team with Earth Power and Ice Beam. We have an Akka Serp. Akka helps with the Heatran. Overall Leaf Storm is really good, only 1 mon faster in the Mega Sep. And there is a Gloom, which I think I did bring in my mock, which was a little bit annoying, but not the end of the world. It will get pressured down. We have Metagross, Assault Vested, really actually a good blanket check to a lot of the team against it. I don't know Odin's exact thought process, but I do remember that it put in a lot of work in mocks. Tapu Fini with a Choice Scarf set, which was the main win con for this team, and then Electros, that set just helps deal with a variety of things, but is mainly the Zapdos pivot. And yeah, without further ado, why don't we go ahead and check out the replay of this battle. So yeah, like I said, we are up against Undead. I mentioned my lead. Oh, let me go ahead and switch it to our side. Yeah, our lead game plan here is Mew. Some common leads that faced were mainly the Uxie. I think a little bit of Zapdos lead probably. But yeah, we can go ahead and hop in. And we do see that Uxie lead as I lead the Mew. U-turn, perfect. We're slower. We get our policy. And we can go ahead and set the rocks as Greninja comes in. And we're in our perfect Leech Life spot. Hopefully we don't get flinched, and we don't. Leech Life comes in. We knock out that Gren. That's a huge threat out of the way already. Uxie comes back in. probably for a foul play, and yeah, just knocks us right on out. Not the end of the world, though. We just go eel. He pops up his rocks, but we get a free knock. And now we can either volt or HP ice. He elects to U-turn into zap. We're actually here for zap, but we get a nice volt off, can get some nice offensive momentum, go into the Metagross. We have the ice punch, but I want to double back into the eel on a possible roost turn. He actually elects to volt switch. Chomp comes out. We have the HP ice for it. We're good. I also could have Dragon Tailed. I think had I been a little bit more familiar with the matchup, Dragon Tail would have probably been my click, but Aqua Tail, and we get our Super Berry off, and we get the HP off, and the Garchomp is gone. Heatran comes out, just overheats us. That's fine. Eel has served its purpose here. Feeny comes in, and at this point, Surf was pretty free, but I elected to go for a risky... no, here I did just safely Surf. Go into my meta, which was my main Sceptile check, as he just synthesizes no Mega. I go for a Hammer Arm trying to call out the Tran, but instead he just goes counter. That's fine. Synth comes off, and I get a fat Ice Punch. Now he's in Bullet Punch range. He switches to scout the Bullet Punch. Yuxi just takes a nice clean 13, and at this point the Feeny kind of has enough chip on things where it is definitely possible to win with it. Heatran comes out, and I just get a free Hidden Power Ground as he clicks Flamethrower, revealing to be Scarfed. Kind of already sussed that out a little bit from the overheat, but wasn't 100% sure. And now here I could just click Surf. I kind of throw a little bit by clicking Moonblast. I think Surf was game winning there, as he elects to go into the Sceptile. I thought Sceptile was a little bit higher health wise, but no, he does just give me the Sceptile. Heatran comes back in. I do have a safe Metagross sack, as he actually goes into the Zapdos, makes the good play as he roosts, and at this point I don't have good enough damage as I Zen to try to get it a little bit lower, and we do just that, but it's gonna not quite be enough here to keep it low, as he does elect to safely go for all of the roosts, you see. And now I realize my mistake. I can get into Feeny, click Surf, but it's actually going to be a weird sort of endgame with the Zapdos, as I just Surf it, as he roosts, and we're probably going to do this little song and dance for a bunch of turns, but in the end I realize, this isn't going to work. We still do have that Misty Terrain, as he goes Hidden Power there, trying to call my Lando switch. And, that was kind of indicative to me of, he can't let my Lando in for free. As he surfs, or as I surf, he just keeps roosting. Eventually he will stick a Toxic on me right there, putting my Feeny on a timer, and I can't lose my Feeny just yet. I have to surf, roost, and at this point I do feel confident he has to click that roost again, so I can make the switch this turn into my Lando. As he does just roost, and I can click my Rock Z at this point, and this will put it nice and low. He has the Chardy to live it, but at this point it is in Ice Beam range, so all I had to do was click Earthquake and prevent any roost shenanigans, and we were able to pick this off. Obviously I did kind of commit a big, not super big, but a little bit of a misplay with that Moonblast versus Surf turn, but it didn't ultimately end up costing me too much here. So we unfortunately do get back on that bench for week 3, but come week 4 it is the double VGC week. I am my team's secondary VGC player. Shout out to Trace, who was our primary VGC player, did super well for us, and helped me a lot throughout the season when I was playing VGC. So yeah, we get this matchup right here, which is actually with our best VGC team. This is an Ogerpon Rain, manual Rain. We don't have Pelipper. It's kind of not worth it when Torn does so well, and we actually have a bit of a Weather War into their Pseudo Sun. It's not as hard as our Rain, but especially in a matchup like this, you are going to want to pull up with the Sun. So I was actually slotted into Michael, their bestie. You may know him either through draft, through Smogon, or he's also very prominent in the VGC scene. coming through with top 2 worlds in 2023 and top 4 in 2024. But this was, I believe, the Dortmund regionals weekend. So he was actually unable to play because we would need to play by Thursday to accommodate him. But I had a really big midterm on the Friday, so I wasn't able to play that game by then. So they actually subbed in one of their bench players who had never really experienced VGC, just a little bit of insight. And as for this matchup, if you can see that Ogre Pawn Wellspring, it looks really juicy. Obviously in draft VGC, anything can Terra, and then Arch also looks really juicy. And I ended up cooking up something pretty special with that Archaladon. And then other than that, Thundy T looks pretty solid. Torn looks good. It was actually a surprisingly good Bear Tick matchup. And the rest of the team I also slotted a Comfy. Didn't really feel like it did much, but I can actually go ahead and pull up the matchup for you all. Sorry, not the matchup, the build that I ended up bringing, which consisted of, I put that Bear Tick in the first slot because it was the first thing that popped up to me, which was, Bear Tick does well. Icicle Crash, Crunch, Liquidation, Protect. Actually had a pretty solid matchup with the Life Orb. Could have potentially done Clear Amulet as well, but, if we got that Rain Up in the Swift Swim, it was actually looking pretty solid to a KOing or OKOing that entire team. And then, especially if they weren't a Typhlosion build, that was my cue to bring Bear Tick a little bit more. You'll see what they end up having. And then we also have our Ogre Pawn, which was the star of the show, with Ivy Cudgel, Spiky Shield, Quick Attack, and Woodhammer. Originally, I tested out a bunch of different moves in that Quick Attack slot, but ultimately, Quick Attack just felt good for me because like a potential like Sash Flutter main, which was causing my team a bit of an issue with the Terra Fairy set. Quick Attack was finishing that off, or finishing off like a Focus Sash Tornadus. Speaking of Torn, I went slightly slow. I didn't opt to go minimum, because I still wanted to be able to click my Bleak Winds faster than something like a slow Landorus or Typhlosion trying to capitalize on Trick Room turns. And we went with the Mental Herb and Terra Dark. I didn't really want to click Terra Dark, but my thought process was, if they see I have the Terra Dark, they may be more doubtful of me carrying the Mental Herb. And then I had Thunderous Therian, Wild Bolt, Storm Volt, Switch, Weather Ball, Electro Web. Pretty solid set. Weather Ball could take care of the Lando. Terra Ghost for any potential fake out shenanigans. Same with my Terra choice on the Archaladon. And it was actually choice specs with Draco, Flash Cannon, Dragon Pulse, and Snarl. The Draco and Flash Cannon combination could pretty much pick off anything I wanted on lead. With the Sturdy, I was pretty much guaranteeing myself a kill, which felt super solid. And then other than that, Snarl potentially could be useful, Dragon Pulse as well. But yeah, the main goal was to try to pick up a kill with this Archaladon. And then Comfy was a light screen because they were very specially based with Taunt, Tailwind, and Pollen Puff. I went Pollen Puff and Flower Veil. Why? I don't recall exactly why. There was a reason for it, but yeah, this was the build. And I can pull up VGC Draft, for those who don't know, is actually played best of 3. Oops. I was going through my games before. We'll go ahead and, sorry about that spoiler. We go ahead and see on lead. I had been practicing with a lot of different leads, but a lot of it was just variations of a Torn T lead. And this time this was actually variations with an Archaladon lead, and this time I went Arch Thundy. They actually showed Terra Electric Flutter main, so I wanted to attack the Landorus right away, and this they reveal Choice Scarf Lando. Thanks to the AV, we live, but we do get flinched. Draco goes ahead and picks off the Lando as Torn comes in, and they can either Sunny Day or Tailwind. They elect to Sunny Day as I lose both of my team members, but that's fine. I can go Torn Ogre. I tear out my Ogre Pawn to get that Spadef boost mainly. As I Rain Dance up, they're actually even slower than I was, as they shoot a Thunderbolt off into my Torn and I live. But now I can go ahead and click a Tailwind with my Ogre, as they sunny day. It was kind of a 50-50 call, because if we both set the tailwind, that could have been bad for me. But Hariyama comes out now, so I just take my free turn with the fake out, dealing with that, as I just fake out Bleak Wind and go into my protects, as I just opt, because the sun is up, to go for the kills on the Hariyama with Woodhammer plus Bleak Wind, and then their Bleak Wind I chew, Tailwind goes up, I Ivy Cudgel so that I don't chip myself with Woodhammer or miss, and I had that game 1 except for that untimely critical hit. Game 2, let me reset these games. I didn't realize that Showdown didn't automatically reset things, and I wanted my refresher. So I'll go ahead and set the games properly. But yeah, like I was saying, it was just an interesting sort of matchup for us there with that rain versus sun dynamic. They were a little bit slower than I was expecting. But yeah, we can go ahead and get into game 2. The leads here, Typhlosion and Slowbro, which was a bit interesting. I'd never fought something like that. That made me think they were just trying to trick room up. So I was doing my threat assessment. I was like, a Typhlosion in the rain can't do much. Might as well just click Rain Dance and Draco into the Slowbro. As they actually elected Terra Dragon, their Slowbro, I'm not exactly sure why. Potentially scouting Electro Shot. But they just lose right away their guy, as I Draco and miss the Typhlosion, which is annoying. Heat Wave does a chunk, and I also was revealed to be faster than the Typhlosion, which was interesting, as I just go ahead and pop up my Tailwind to match theirs. And now I can go ahead. I predicted that they would just go for the sunny day. There's no point there in rain dancing, and I would rather just, do my damage with the Bleak Wind. And at this point, now it might be worth trying to win the Weather War, but instead I just elect to protect my Torn and sack my Arch, and to hopefully get in Thundy T, which I do, as they go ahead and protect, and they'd already wasted their Terra. So there's that info, as I Electro Web, and they don't drop, so they actually reveal to be either Clear Amulet or Covert Cloak, and I Wild Bolt Storm. So I miss actually on the Flutter, but I can go ahead and reset the rain once more, Wild Bolt Storm, and Paralyze, which indicates to me that they were the Clear Amulet and not the Cloak. And Ogre comes in, and I can just bonk the Flutter. And rebound game 2, take that mental reset after getting crit was kind of stressful, but we were able to rebound and just play the matchup like we had, like game 1 never even happened. And I was unfortunately going to a game 3, but my head was still high. I knew I still had a solid shot. And we see Torn, Arch versus Flutter, Lando. They just defaulted to what they did game 1, but we had immediate speed control, which means no Lando shenanigans, just a dead Lando, which is awesome, as they Thunderbolt, and we live that even better than we had previously, because last time it was with a Photosynthesis boost, as Draco just does a good chunk to the Torn, and we go down to our Sturdy. Our Arch is doing like no damage as they choose to protect, and we Wild Bolt, do like nothing to the Flutter, do a little other chunk with Draco, so now it's sitting at 60. That crit, mildly annoying, but we're still fine, as we bring in the Ogre Wellspring. Still sun is up, but that's fine. Woodhammer, because we know that the Wild Bolt will pick up the Torn, which it does, and we are able to Spiky Shield to not get faked out, which is nice for us, as the Moonblast comes out and just picks off the Thundy, as expected. We can go ahead, because they still do have the Tailwind up. I elected to just Rain Dance because I wasn't going to win that Speed War either way. And I am able to cudgel the Flutter. Thankfully, they're not like a super strong fighting move like Close Combat, and instead were the Drain Punch, as they opt to fake out, reading my Spiky Shield, which was good for them, but unfortunately you still just die to a Cudgel in the rain. So yeah, that was our set versus Potato Chan. We moved to 2-0, and we are actually thrust right back into the action because Trace had a busy week of work with travel, so we were thrust into a matchup against Repeat. And in this matchup, there's an interesting one. It's Rain versus another prankster guy, which means that we do have to kind of fight a weather war again, and Sun's good for them because they have the Hearthflame Ogre Pawn. Trick Room mode as well was actually the thing that I feared the most with Dusclops and Blood Moon Ursaluna. And so that was a major threat for me, was having to contend with Dusclops, Blood Moon Ursaluna. And then another important threat on his end was the Araquanid potentially water absorbing and walling, but that wasn't too scary for me. Raikou was a bit faster than my team, so if he wanted to do something with that, it was potentially annoying, but at the end of the day, it's a Raikou, so nothing too scary. The bottom two guys, not too much, but it was mostly just I couldn't really safely land a taunt on that Dusclops, mostly because of the Terra Dark, but I had a few tricks up my sleeve for this matchup, and so yeah, let me go ahead and get into my build. I actually elected to bring Bayonet with this build, and that's because I wanted the Frisk ability to try to identify where a Mental Herb may be. I figured it would be hiding on the Illumies, but if it was hiding on the Dusclops and I went for a taunt on that, I would be screwed, which was super bad for me. So I ultimately decided, let's try to Frisk it out. And originally I had Switcheroo, I believe, in that taunt slot, but I was like, they won't expect the Choice Banded taunt, and it's a non-prankster taunt, which was super useful for me. As you see, I actually have 4 taunt mods on this build, just because that's how scared I was of the Trick Room going up. I also had Torn. This was another pretty standard Torn. I was not going under the Illumise speed, and I was Focus Hash, which meant I could try to max out my damage output here. So that's exactly what I did with my Bleak Wind Storm. So they were actually hitting things pretty hard. Tailwind, Rain Dance, and Taunt. He didn't have good Fake Out, so I didn't feel the need to run Protect. So that's what I ended up with. Arch, I was actually a very standard Archaludon this time. Pretty offensive. I had EVs to better live Ursaluna Blood Moons. I believe after my Terra, I could live the Blood Moon pretty well, and I could live 2 Earth Powers after Terraing, I believe. Maybe that was before. I don't remember exactly. Or I think it was living 2 Life Orb Earth Powers after Terra, or living 1 Life Orb Earth Power pre-Terra. We had a very standard Ogre Pawn with Cudgel and Knock as our offensive moves. I figured, Cudgel hits everything pretty hard other than a potential like Araquanid, and Knock would be useful either removing Dusclops' Eviolite or any other potential scary items. I had a Choice Scarf Thunderous with the Weather Bolt and Terra Water to potentially, hopefully, catch either a Hearth or a Blood Moon lack in turn 1. And then I had Comfy again. I don't know what it is, but I'm just not a super huge fan of Comfy and the way that it plays in VGC Draft, whatever that reason may be. I've seen Trace use it on this team, and it's done really well for him. But Comfy just wasn't my jam. Mocks were pretty 50-50 this week. It was a toss-up whether or not I was winning or losing. I guess I can say that much. This is when I start really... I remember a lot of the mocks that I did for this matchup, and yeah, it was very 50-50. There was a lot... I think I beat most of the modes that weren't just hard Trick Room, but I did struggle in that Trick Room mode. So ultimately, this is how it plays out. I lead like I'd practiced with Tornadus and Bayonet, as they lead Ogre Pawn, Hearthflame, and Dusclops. And I realized, in all of my mocks, I didn't actually ever face Follow Me plus Trick Room, which, yeah, surprising, but I figure let's try to play around that. So I do end up doing just that with Poltergeist and Bleak Wind, as unfortunately I don't end up actually dealing with it, and I'm able to connect the taunt into the Bayonet as they hyper voice, knocking out my Bayonet. I believe that I actually no, as I go ahead and live the Nightshade and the hyper voice, and at this point I realize, hey, they're not damaging boosting item. Unfortunately, they live my Cudgel as they Nightshade into my Arch, and they Earth Power it, which is a very good read on their end. You know, I didn't really have, if they just kill my Arch, there's not much I can do. And yeah, I end up losing this game one. I looked pretty defenseless. So game two, I was like, what adaptation could they make to get off of that lead? So I figured, you know, they probably don't want to lead something and risk their Ogre getting like killed and then the Dusclops getting taunted or something like that. So I ultimately lead Torn and Comfy, and they actually switch off and lead this mode because Comfy was sort of my like anti-trick room here. Sorry, let me rewind that. Comfy was like my anti-trick room, but they perfectly call, and down goes Comfy. They don't care about my potential Terror Dragon, which is understandable. As I Bleak Winded there, I get my Tailwind, they match it, as they protect on my Cudgel. I go for the Spiky Shield here, taunt the Illumies, and see that it actually is the Mental Herb. They try to reset their Sunny Day, and then Cudgel. So then I go for a follow-up Bleak Wind as my Ogre Pawn gets melted. But at this point, that speed drop, pretty helpful for me, as I'm able to get a free, safe Bleak Wind. They actually go for a Spiky Shield, but the Bleak Wind is good, plus my damaging move of choice here was just a Dragon Pulse into the Ogre, try to make sure I don't miss. As here, I'm able to reset my Tailwind and start snarling things down, make sure that my Arch is poised to live any hit. I retaunt the Illumies, don't want to deal with anything that is possibly doing, and get that snarl going again. As down goes that. The Ogre Pawn comes in, I'm in a pretty good position to wall it as they go for a Spiky Shield, and I elect to just try to pick off the Raikou. Blood Moon comes out as we start snarling. It's time to snarl. And yeah, that Blood Moon, as you can see, does a chunk, and I realize here they're Assault Vested, as that Draco fails to pick up the kill, only doing 66%. But another one will take it out. So we force a game 3 on the back of our Chaladon being a carry, which I think was the theme of our VGC season, was being carried by our Chaladon. So yeah, here is our game 3. And this time I figured, you know, they probably won't go back to that Trick Room mode. It seemed like they wanted to get off of it. So I actually go for my Thunderous lead as they elect to just click a Tailwind. I was hard calling Sunny Day as I go for Bleak Winds plus Weather Ball, as they just Tailwind, and now I attempt my Rain Dance, figuring I'll be slower, as I actually Rain Dance to live the Cudgel, and I'm able to pick off the Ogre Pawn with the Weather Ball, which things go exactly as planned. Very rare that that would happen in Draft League, but it did. As Raikou comes out, they re-go for the Sunny Day, as I just set the Tailwind, and they start Calm Minding, which is potentially scary for me, as the bear comes out, but Rain Dance plus Weather Ball lets me get right through that Ogre Pawn, or right through the bear, as they snarl, and my Thunderous is now at this point getting weak, but I do have the Rain up. They protect, as I Weather Ball, trying to get the kill, and Terra Water, Ivy Cudgel actually would pick up the knockout. I try to speed up the game, go for a Cudgel, but they do get the double protect, so now I'm in a bit of a precarious spot. Still not a bad one. I just end up trying to, I can protect my Ogre Pawn, pull my Thunderous out of the battle, reset the special attack drops, and then bring my Thundy back in, heal up actually on their Thunderbolt, as I just am able to start snarling this Raikou down, Thunderbolt plus Snarl, that combination, it's unable to set up on me, it will get chipped down, and it will not be in a positive special attack stat by the time that Ogerpon comes out, and we would be able to pick it up with a cudgel once that happens. Repeat realizes that and elects to forfeit, and we are up to 3-0 now. I would want to keep my momentum rolling here, but unfortunately, Louisville Regionals comes up. I have a blast there. End up going, making day 2 in that event, so I can't say that I'm disappointed that I wasn't able to play in DCL, but at least I had the courtesy to not attempt to play in a tournament where I knew that I would be unable to play because I was at a regional. So the next matchup was actually in week 7, and it would be my debut in Scarlet and Violet for this tournament. So here we are able to see my matchup against Slick, which is a rain matchup, which is interesting. Weather's always a bit of a volatile game, but Mox actually here went surprisingly well. Originally I had a Terra Grass Torn in Mox, ended up switching to Terra Electric, which I'll go over later. But generally, things felt pretty solid. Their rain was able to be consistently shut down by my hail, and the Mimikyu that I had was able to consistently shut down Terrapagos. The spikes from Samurott were hard for them to contend with, but yeah, you can go ahead and see the, let me pull up the build that I had here. The build that I had in this game, I had Iron Treads, actually a special set to help better deal with our Chaladon. I guess mixed, I was knockoff and Rapid Spin, but the main set here was just clicking Earth Power, trying to get rid of, or trying to attack our Chaladon where it was weaker, and potentially Overquill as well if I got intimidated. Knockoff to help remove items, and Volt Switch to keep up the momentum. And sometimes, you know, people throw out their Pelipper, they're like, oh, we wall Iron Treads, and then they end up taking like 95 from the Volt Switch. I don't think it would ever kill, unfortunately, but it would do a good chunk to Pelippers, which was always nice to see. And then I had a Scarf Terra Electric Torn. Bleak Wind was pretty spammable here, only resists our Sandy Shocks and Arch. I ended up actually bringing a set that kind of got walled by Sandy, but my team was very well equipped to deal with Sandy Shock, so that ultimately wasn't a worry for me. Mimikyu with a Roat Berry meant that if Terrapagos were to ever attack me and break my disguise, it would also lose its Terra Shell. With Thunder Wave and Play Rough is my main damaging move here, not really meant to do a whole lot of damage, just meant to be super fat. The Terrapagos would have a hard time taking me down. Trick Room in potential late game scenarios for my Abomasnow. I would try it in Mox. Ultimately, it wasn't really a slot that I ended up using very much. It was kind of a dead slot, but there wasn't a lot that was much better. And then Pain Split would help me better 1v1 things like that. Terrapagos mainly. Gouging Fire, which was super cool here, was a Dragon Dance Sunny Day set, trying to, you know, take away their weather, boost myself. Heat Crash in the sun would actually kill everything that I would need it to, other than the Pelipper, which is where the Thunderfang came in, and which that could also potentially pick off Pelipper in rain, which was super nice for me. Then I had Samurott Hisui with the Assault Vest. I was living any hit from Lead Torn, and was able to just Ceaseless Edge. Yeah, that was, I originally was just max, and then I realized, you know, I actually died of Specs Terra Flying Hurricane. I didn't want to do that, so I ultimately ended up with that maximum speed investment to not lose any ties to Overquill or Archaladon. And then Abomasnow last, Blizzard, Ice Shard, Energy Ball, and Earth Power. I ended up tweaking the Abomasnow at the start of the week. It was just, you know, max HP, max special attack, modest, that, or actually quiet to deal with my Ice Shard damage. Then I was like, you know, I want special defense to not be too KO'd by Sandy Shock's Power Gem or Flash Cannon. Then it was, I actually want speed for Paralyzed Torn, so Blitz and Impulse helped me cook up this this spread, which hit all of these benchmarks that I was looking for. So yeah, this was actually my build. In terms of mocks, they all pretty much for the most part went very well. There was a few that I threw trying to test my alternate lines, but you know, doing that ended up helping me realize what my game plan should be, and you know how to play this matchup my best. So we ultimately are able to look at this matchup, and we see my game plan with the lead Samurai Hisui as they lead Overquill, which is something that I, acknowledged and actually talked about a lot in my prep chat, but nobody ever actually went with a lead Overquill build. As I went into my Iron Treads, I figured they'd want to try to preserve their Spike, or T-Spike, as I knock their Overquill as a liquidation and get the defense drop, which was a bit unfortunate. I ended up double knocking here, which in hindsight I should have clicked Rapid Spin or Earth Power, but ultimately not the end of the world. The T-Spike doesn't really matter too much. I fished for a Bleak Wind because I know that I live hits, and so I just switch out my Torn after I miss. They surf, but I'm able to once again go for a Ceaseless Edge, get a second layer of Spike, which is great, and do some chip to the Arch. As now I just want a Sacred Sword, put it in range, as they actually reveal to be Protect plus Lefties. I'd fought a lot of AV, I'd fought a lot of Shuka. Protect Lefties was not one that I had seen. As I Sacred Sword and get the crit, which puts it real nice and low, which is good for me. Ultimately, what would happen here is I go into my Torn to try to get a little bit more regen as I go for Bleak Wind because they were in range. Had they not been, I would have probably had to go for Focus Blast. But we do hit our Bleak Wind here, which is great. Terapagos comes in as I go into my Mimikyu. The T-Spike being here means that it couldn't Toxic me, which was good. They revealed Dark Pulse, which also kind of indicated to me that they weren't respecting the Mimikyu very much. And they weren't like Flash Cannon for it. As I am able to play rough, take it a little bit lower, and I know that I live another Dark Pulse. They fish for the flinch. I T-Wave it, and then I'm able to Pain Split, get it super low, and I do live another Dark Pulse plus Toxic, or plus Poison, and I play rough, bring the Ogerpon down to 5% and Paralyzed, which is right where I want it to be for a Gouging Fire setup at this point. I go Gouging Fire. I actually am EV'd. I live Sandy Shock's Earth Power. Their booster speed. I get greedy and go for a second Dragon Dance as they Earth Power me, and I'm able to click Heat Crash but get fully paralyzed, unfortunately. So I end up getting nothing out of my Gouging Fire when I at least should have gotten the Sandy Shocks. But at this point, Blizzard's super free. They do pop up their rocks, suspecting that my Torn isn't Boots. As they reveal Terra Water Torn, but at this point the damage had been done, where even if I don't Energy Ball trying to make that call, there was kind of no point, as they sack their Turtle into my Energy Ball, go for a bit of regen on their Torn, but first go into the Basculegion to kill me, which is fine. I just go into my Torn, go down to 75, am able to click Terra Electric and Terra Blast, pick off that Basque. Terra Electric, Terra Blast also picks off the Torn, and we are golden. This was actually the last battle for the regular season. This was week 7. We finished tied for the final playoff spot in the standings. So we went to tiebreak, and we won a close 2-1 tiebreak as a series, and that leads us into round 1 of playoffs versus the Band Chasers. They elect to, at this point, they get to choose the extra tier. Before it was just decided by the week, but they chose to play a second game of Sword and Shield against us. Doesn't really impact me too much. I'm just going to go ahead and slot Scarlet and Violet again, and we slot into Luxance, and I can show the matchup. As I'm recording this is Sunday after our playoff series wrapped up. So I played this game yesterday. I was game 1 of the playoff series. We always want to start those series off with a win. It helps the mental a lot for the team. But here we had that pressure fall on our shoulders. They it was an interesting matchup. So in tiebreaks, Glop used this team, and he had a really good time using the team. He offered to build me a team. And I graciously accepted that. I'll always take a free build. I do like building my own teams, but, as a busy person, sometimes, you take a free team when it's offered to you. I think most people would relate to that. There are some people, sometimes I find myself included in that, where it's harder to use a team that you didn't build, but in team tours, you're doing so many mocks where that pain kind of goes away after the first or second mock. And so yeah, I was ultimately able to pick up this build pretty seamlessly. This was a super fun draft to use. The matchup was kind of interesting just because every single mon could come, and every single mon did come. Surprisingly, Servine was a bit of a big threat here, if you can believe that. And then Dragon Dance Dragonite was the other thing causing me big problems here. So originally, I can go ahead and show you all the builds. But originally, we had a couple of different variants. We had a different build with Hypnosis plus Nasty Plot Darkrai. And the goal of that was, we would have a couple of turns to freely go for a Hypnosis on the Tinglu and hope to fish out games, and that was good, but it wasn't reliable. And in a setting like this, my matchup was good enough where I could actually afford to try to find something good and reliable. And so ultimately, and then Jirachi was actually my choice Scarfer here, but ultimately we switched the roles. Darkrai dropped Hypnosis and dropped Nasty Plot for Trick and Foul Play. Jirachi dropped the Scarf for the boots, or he tried out Shuka, but ultimately ended up with holding Heavy Duty Boots. And then, other than that, the main other change was Sinistra being, originally in that Sunspore spot, it was Calm Mind, but I never actually I never clicked Calm Mind once with my Sinistra. It was just too hard to push progress. And, oftentimes I felt like I was just clicking Matcha Gotcha and fishing. So I did try Foul Play in that slot, and then I ended up settling for the Sunspore, allowing me to, spread paralysis onto my opponent's team. They did have 2 Sunspore immunities, but one of them would Terra out of it. And then other than that, my main Terra this week was actually Belly Bolt, clicking Terra Poison to stop Servine, which was really funny. That sounds like something that wouldn't be true in a matchup between Terra Ogerpons, but that's kind of how the matchup ended up playing out. And the Lando set, I debated a lot because there were some games where it felt completely dead and others where it was super good at popping up the rocks, keeping Dragonite off of multi-scale, knocking that Tinglu super low, and preventing Scizor from freely defogging. And then the Ogerpon was the lead of choice. Every time, just lead it, click a spike, works out perfectly. Nobody ever led Scizor, nobody ever led Dragonite. So I was able to just pop up a spike and not really have a care in the world about that. But even if they did lead Scizor, they're kind of asking to get hit by an Ivy Cudgel. So that was that. And let me go ahead and show you all one replay here. So we, like I mentioned, lead Ogerpon. A lot of people were both leading Ogerpon. They actually led Tinglu, which is super good for me as I get a free spike and I get a U-turn, pop the Dragonite's multi-scale, which is awesome. Go into my Rachi as they Dragon Tail, which means they're probably not Dragon Dance, and I breathe a sigh of relief. Tinglu comes out as I get a super free Ice Beam. Was good into the mon they were out with, was good into their main check, and they reveal Lefty's Tinglu, which is fine for me. As I go into my Lando as they pop up the rocks, which, as expected, I taunt to try to prevent anything further from happening in regards to spikes, as they just opt to Ruination me. I pop up my rocks, and I'm able to U-turn their Dragonite and go back out into my Rachi. I was Boots, don't take rocks, as they roost back up to full. Tinglu comes out, take rock and spike, and I go for an Ice Punch, which is a good chip. After the lefties, wasn't sure if I killed. Iron Head was a 60% chance of working, but I figured I would much rather just play it safe. Don't want my Jirachi taking unnecessary chip damage there. As Tinglu comes out, or Tinglu goes out, I just U-turn back into the Jirachi, click my Ice Punch. They actually go into Ogerpon Wellspring, which is fine for me. I go Ice Punch, they're down to 50%, which is perfect. Go Sinistra. I have Colbur Berry for any knockoff shenanigans as they actually reveal Synthesis. I get a free Stun Spore here as they spike up, and I'm able to click Matcha Gotcha here for free. They go Glimora, take, good chip from the hazards, which is exactly what I was here for. I'm able to get back to full, and I actually score the burn, so Hex is a good, favorable roll for me. So I opt to fish for it, don't end up hitting it, that's fine. At this point, they're not going to click Toxic again, so I just go into Rachi as they set up a T-Spike. Could be potentially annoying for my Darkrai, in the game. Other than that, nothing's too bad for me. In regards to the T-Spike, I do have the Terra Poison Belly Bolt to remove it. I just have to position that. They ended up going Servine. They were actually Terra Steel Servine, so I did click Fire Punch, kind of forgetting that Ogerpon Terra'd, but then I was like, you know, I actually do want to click Fire Punch in case Scizor comes in. I go for an Iron Head, hope for a flinch, don't get it, but we're going to play that song and dance for a little bit. Get a flinch, Iron Head again, get a flinch, hopefully Fire Punch kills. It doesn't, puts them on 1, they heal, back to the flinch game. Tinglu comes out and is sacked instead. They die here to an Iron Head, and they just bring out their Ogerpon Wellspring. I go for a bit of a para-flinch action. I could have ultimately also decided to go for Healing Wish, but I figured, you know, para-flinch might be better, actually, as I'm able to get into my Belly Bolt, Terra Poison. They get para'd there, as I'm able to remove the T-Spike the next time my Belly Bolt hits the field. So I bring in my Lando, they go Dragonite, keep them off of the multi-scale, just U-turn, back in a Belly Bolt, things are gone, and they bring out the Scizor now. I try to Toxic, they're obviously immune. I don't want to lose my boots, so I just sack my Landorus as they knock. I bring out my Ogerpon, go for a big Cudgel to try to bring it down super low, and I successfully do that as they reveal dual Wing Beat Scizor. So my Ogerpon goes down, and then I go out into my Sinistcha to try to pick up the Scizor. I didn't want to take chip on either of my other guys. I am able to thankfully live that dual Wing Beat and pick off the Scizor. As now Dragonite comes out, I just want to nail it with a Toxic. The game should be wrapped up by Darkrai clicking Ice Beam. I probably didn't even need to deal with Belly Bolt. I probably could have just gone Darkrai, clicked Ice Beam a few times, but I figured why not play it safe. They just Dragon Tail me out graciously into my Darkrai as I just click Ice Beam 3 times and am able to pick off the game. They go for E-Speed. I was a bit surprised they had that after revealing the rest of their moves, but Ogerpon goes down 3%. Surely it dies to an Ice Beam. It does. And Servine's down at like 25% after the hazards. Surely it dies to an Ice Beam as well, and it does. So we finished the season actually at 5-0, including our playoff run. So I'm super duper proud of myself for that across 3 different formats. Ultimately, we do kind of get destroyed in playoffs. I think I was the only win this series, but it was a super fun DCL for me. I got to play a lot, got to make a ton of new friends, and got to show everyone that I'm actually pretty competent, despite being mostly a Wi-Fi player, and I can hang with the best of them. So if you enjoyed, be sure to subscribe and leave a like, and hopefully I will return to more consistent uploads, hopefully in January. You know, hopefully I can get into the next round of leagues after the current BBL season is over. But with all that being said, I'm glad you took the time and watched this. Hopefully you enjoyed some high-level Draft League content. And yeah, until next time, see ya. Peace.